1, 2. Yeah, how's that, folks? You got me better? Everybody hearing anything? There we go. I think we should be good now. I'm seeing that I'm getting levels coming through, and now they've got sound. Okay. Sorry about the mix-up, folks. I don't know what happened. It was the first time I'd scheduled an event in advance on Restream, and it seems to be that was something that had tricked everything else. But everything's working, and we're really, really excited. So sorry about the mix-up in the beginning, but it gave everybody an opportunity to jump back in. Folks, I can't tell you how excited I am to speak with our guest tonight and give you folks the information on what exactly is playing out in this state. First of all, before I bring him on, I'm going to apologize publicly because when I had spoken to him on the phone earlier, I said, well, it appears I have been pronouncing your last name wrong all week. So his name is Chad LaVallia, and Chad LaVallia is one of the lawyers he's representing. He's bringing that case up against evil Kathy Cuomo and Hochul. Cuomo and address Hochul. And we're going to get to a whole heck of a lot with Chad and on behalf of CJL Law and the Mandate for Freedom PAC. He's fighting for all of you. He's fighting to make sure that the process by which all of these unconstitutional mandates were enacted is never to be repeated again. So I am going to bring him on right now because we're going to have a conversation. I hope you guys listen and share this with everybody because what we're going to talk about tonight goes far beyond just masks. It goes far beyond, vaccines or anything like that. We're going to talk strictly on why this is an abuse of power, and how the process has been changed and how it's being eroded. So it is my honor, my privilege, and I'm very excited to bring on our guest tonight, Chad LaVallia, CJL Law. Chad, say hello to everybody.
How you doing, everyone? Hey, Sean, how are you?
Chad, I'm great. Thank you so much for coming on and doing this for everyone. We're really excited. We're really excited for the conversation and to get this information out. I think it's very important. So let's just ask the first one and the easy one right away. First of all, not the easy one, but how are you personally feeling right now? You must have had a long week, no sleep. I mean, we've been up all night just wondering what's going on. How have you been handling it? And really just how's it been? What are your feelings? What are your thoughts going into the next week? And what can we look forward to in terms of maybe some resolutions going forward?
So I'm feeling good, Sean. Yeah, it's been a rough few weeks, especially this one, but I had some people fighting with me: Will Luciani, Amir Benno, Michael Demetriou, of course, Kim Boyette, Melissa Gambardello. Got to thank them. But we feel confident going into this week. We win on the law, plain and simple. It's really not gray. And so if we get a fair tribunal, then I'm confident that the stay will be lifted.
So what has been the process leading up to getting that ruling in front of Judge Rademacher, or ruling from Judge Rademacher? What was the process going forward? Let's go back to the beginning, right? I mean, we talked before the show, and we're going to talk about everything kind of going into it from a personal level too a little later. But what is the process? How did you get it to the New York State Supreme Court? Did you just bring it there, or where did this start? How did this get going?
So this started in August. My wife asked me to go to a board meeting. Never gone to one before, and asked me to speak for her because she had a question about this mask and stuff. And you know what? It even goes back before that because the governor has never had lawmaking powers ever. And it was only until COVID came that the legislature said, all right, we don't know what is going on here. We got to give this guy the ability to get things done. And so for the first time in history, they gave him the ability to make these directives. And we'll get into that later. But so I went to this board meeting and I spoke and I got these blank stares like we can't do anything. The president put her hands up and she said, we feel for you, but our hands are tied. And I saw all these mothers and fathers around just helpless. And as time went on, I looked into the law I'm a trial lawyer. I practice criminal law mostly. I don't do administrative stuff or the things that we're involved in now. And just something was off. And Will Luciani, who's a friend, and our kids go to school together, and he's another lawyer. We just were talking, and something didn't seem right. It didn't seem that we were being governed in the same way we're used to. And so I looked into it, and turns out we're not. And so I was looking to bring in action, and then luckily I met Kim Boyette, who runs Mandate for Freedom, and Melissa Gambardella, and I volunteered to help pro bono for free. I said, listen, I could donate some money, but I feel like my legal help would be more significant. And so I got into it and eventually became the lead counsel. And our lead plaintiff, Michael Dimitru, is one of the most passionate people I've ever met. And he has been involved in this from the beginning. And the kids have always been the most important primary focus for all of us. And so we spoke with him one day, and just like that, we just got it going. And I did a ton of research and architected this lawsuit on my own. There's no other attorneys involved at the time, just me. And we took on Hochul, and I filed it in Nassau County Supreme Court. And the rest is history.
And you got the ruling from Judge Rademacher, which we're going to talk about soon. You'd mentioned a name that a lot of people know here, Kim Boyette. She runs the Mandate for Freedom PAC, and something that we had been talking about. Your name has come up in conversation that I've been having all week. Obviously, never has it come up where I've uttered your last name correctly, and that's going to be the joke.
That's all right.
But I mean, people call me Farash all the time. It's pronounced Farish, but it's a Middle Eastern last name, so they're called Farash. So I totally get it, and I apologize.
No, please, I'm used to it.
Yeah, I'm sure you are. I'm sure you are. But Kim with Mandate for Freedom PAC, and she had mentioned that, that's some of where a lot of the funding is coming from. So what I've done is I've dropped on the bottom of the screen here, it says donate Mandate for Freedom PAC. So you can look this up. They're on Facebook. Please, please, please donate. This is how we're going to be able to keep this fight going. Folks like Chad, a parent who spoke at a board meeting and then decided it's time to take action. Right. And that's really what's happening everywhere. You're seeing it, whether it's mask mandates or vaccines or the curriculum or anything like that. It's just a parent that decides they're going to take action. One person decided they were going to foil their school district and get all the information. They found out all sorts of terrible things were going on. You took action, took it to the courts. Now you're finding out not just masks, not just schools, but everywhere. The legal process of New York State is changing right now, or it's attempting to be changed. If you weren't there, Chad, I mean, she'd be able to make whatever laws she wanted. Before we get to the process, let's go to this particular case's process, right? So right now there's a stay, and I want to clarify with everybody what that means, and I'm going to let you do that because I am not a lawyer. So what is a stay? How did that happen? And what comes next in the process, the very next step with regards to the stay?
All right. Very good question. I'm happy to get to it. So we won. That there's no other court about this case. There's no appellate court in this state that has said otherwise. And no matter what false narrative the governor or the Department of Health or the state education department tried putting out there, we won. I was there on Monday, and I whooped their ass in court. That's how it went. And a stay, after we won, they immediately filed an appeal, but the appellate process takes time. So a stay is just a temporary procedural stop. It's like a pause for the enforcement of the judgment. It is not at all a court saying, oh, we agree with the state. Not even remotely close. So this is just a temporary stay until the court can fully look at whether to grant the stay or lift it, pending appeal. And even then, no matter what happens, they're still not commenting on who won or not. It's totally procedural. And the state is trying to do this, obviously, so they can get what they want pending the appellate process, which takes several months. Normally, you have 6 months to write an appellate brief, and they want to try to consolidate this all into a few days. That's not how it works. So until an appellate court, higher court, says otherwise, we won. It's unconstitutional, it's invalid, and it's unenforceable. And nothing will change next week or up until we speak and argue in front of the appellate division. So it's just about the judgment, and that's it.
Cool. So there's a stay in place. It's a pause on the enforcement of the judgment. Let me ask you this one. This is a question that I just literally just thought of. You see all these school districts, is like 12, 13, 14, however many they are, signing what's called an amicus brief. What is that? Those are words I've never, what is that? They're in support of you, I think. They're standing on it in support of your case. What is an amicus brief, and how does that help you?
So an amicus brief, it's called Friends of the Court. That's a fancy Latin term. So other institutions can, or people who have an interest in the case, can file what's called an amicus, and it's basically a document in support of the suit. And it does help, and the courts consider it, and it says, hey, we have an interest in the resolution of this matter too. And it's funny you should mention that, because at the board meeting that I went to, or the one after that, I asked the lawyer for our school district the same damn question. I said, because the Locust Valley and Massapequa school districts were the only ones that were fighting, and they had wonderful boards of education, and ours was doing nothing, and our president was doing nothing. And the lawyer from Ingerman and Smith, and I'm dropping that name because their firm represents 73 municipalities across Long Island. They're giving the same advice across the board. And you know what? They are the experts in this stuff, but little old me knew more about it than they did. And they weren't doing their jobs. And when I asked them to file an amicus for the Locust Valley Massapequa, kind of laughed. The lawyer kind of laughed, but yes, that's what it is. It's support for the litigants in the lawsuit on one side or the other from people who have an interest in it. And it's really great to see all the people that have filed.
Is that something that could sway a decision? Is that something that usually helps helps your cause, or is that just something that's kind of supplementary and nice to see and it's out there? Is it weighted? Does it have any legal weight, do you say?
It doesn't have legal weight per se, but we're all human beings, right?
Sure.
Judges are human beings. So when they see that there's a strong interest in it, it makes a difference. That can't be disputed. And, that just happened in the Supreme Court case where OSHA was challenged for very similar things here. And there was tons of amicus, and there was like over 60 parties. And the court mentioned it in its decision that, and because it's not just it's not a small amount of people that are affected, it's a lot, and their interest and they're fighting it. So I think it has some weight for sure.
Awesome. That's great. I mean, it's good to know that when a district signs on or anything like that, or, or these amicus briefs are filed, and that it actually goes towards, helping the cause, because that's important. And to see so many districts get behind it, like you said, judges are human beings. They see that, they may be able to feel the momentum. Let's talk about momentum, because there's a lot of momentum coming. There was, this groundswell. Tuesday was a big day. The masks were optional. They were unconstitutional. It was unenforceable. And yet we still had kids that were being segregated in school districts, and everything was up in the air. But it really feels to me like we're moving in the direction of, back to bringing power back to the people. Do you feel that same momentum? And if you do, kind of what leads you to believe those things, seeing as how you're on the inside on this, you're running point on this. Do you feel the momentum? Do you feel like the tide is changing?
Absolutely. I feel like there's been this wave that has come over, and we're all uniting together, which is really the most important thing. And as more and more people are realizing what's going on, they're standing up. And I feel like we're, for the first time in a long time, seeing what the government is doing, and we're not saying it's okay. And every day we get stronger. And I can't tell you how many people have reached out to me, and I'm sorry to all those I haven't been able to get back to. It's been a busy week, but they're all supportive and united. And I don't think Hochul understands what wave is coming at her, because we're growing, we're getting bigger. So yeah, the momentum is coming, and she's gonna get bulldozed one way or the other.
I'm excited for it. I'm excited to have you in our corner. Obviously, very talented lawyer and doing things that nobody else had been able to do. But just again, it's the difference that one person can make, and then when you get some folks behind. So please help him out, because he is just a guy. He's a dad. He's a father, and who decided to take a stand. Mandate for Freedom PAC. Go ahead there, donate to the cause, because that'll really help get things going. Listen, everything costs money. Time is money. All these procedures, they're not free. They're not easy. They're not cheap. So if you can, to advance the cause, show your support. We were out there rallying. You guys are all watching tonight. And there's the by all. I mean, Chad, I'll tell you right now, you're our best rated guest. You the views right now, the simultaneous views right now are blowing my mind. So this is really great to have you on, and hopefully we can see some of these folks just chip in a little bit. Anything you have, if they can. Mandate for Freedom PAC. It would be great. And to help you out, the stay. When do we find out about the stay, whether it's lifted or in place during the rest of the appeals process?
So we expect by Tuesday or Wednesday to find out.
Okay.
And again, on the law, it's clear, and I could go into that later. And I just want to remind people, this is all centered around children. Okay, it's not about there's a few things. It's not about the science or the masses. There are children who, for 2 years, have had these muzzles on their face, and I don't care what the CDC says. When a child is saying that this mask is hurting me, or I can't concentrate, my nose is bleeding, I'm tired, and your parents seeing all this, I don't need a scientific study to see what's right in front of me. And this case always centered around the children. But as time went on, and as we're going to talk about, it's much worse than that, and it really strikes at the very heart of our democracy. And yeah, and I am just a dad, and one person can make a difference. And I think that message has spread to everybody. And there's Kim Boyette and Melissa. They are tremendous. I mean, they fight tirelessly every single day for our kids.
Every day.
Without people like them, without people like you, Sean, we who knows what could have happened to us.
No, I mean, you're kind for saying that. I mean, I just kind of like to get the information out to folks, and we organize and we're doing things just trying to support the cause. But you're taking action. You're on the front lines. I know you're not sleeping. I know you're having long weeks. It's not easy. Believe me, the people that are watching right now appreciate everything you're doing for them. So, again, just a hat tip and a big time round of applause. When you get a ruling on the stay, let's say the stay is lifted next Wednesday, hypothetically, and the governor decides to continue in the appeals process, that means that your ruling, the ruling that Judge Rademacher had ruled upon last week, is the only standing ruling. There is no stay, which means on Wednesday or Tuesday of next week, or whenever you find out, if that stay is lifted, right? What does that mean? That means that the mandates are unconstitutional, unenforceable. Does that mean that it is now optional everywhere, or are school districts now going to be able to vote on that to determine what to do?
It should be optional everywhere.
Optional everywhere.
Yes.
And if a school decides that they're going to enforce a mask mandate that's been ruled unconstitutional, are they opening themselves up to legal issues?
Yeah, they're opening themselves up to a floodgate of litigation. That's
okay.
Sure. And as far as what I saw in the segregation stuff, I think that's absolutely horrendous. There is absolutely no justification to isolate a child under these circumstances. And my heart goes out to these parents who had to go in on Tuesday only to have their school segregate their kid. This is not acceptable. I mean, we've all heard the Brown v. Board of Education case, and stands for you can't segregate people. And I don't care what it's for. It's not just based on race. You can't segregate children based on whether they wear a mask or not wear a mask. They're not going to get an equal education. So yeah, they're opening the floodgates for litigation for sure. And there's consequences to these actions that they have to think about.
Yeah, it breaks my heart. I mean, hear stories from some of these kids. I met a few of them from Riverhead. One of them in particular came on. He spoke about what happened, but he was segregated, and they threatened to say, "Oh, your father's going to come pick you up." He said, "Nope." Told his dad, "Don't come pick me up," and he got 20 of his friends to do it, and they basically held a sit-in. A lot of these kids are done. There's kids in middle schools that are doing it too, by 20, 30, 40 kids in a couple of these schools, and they're segregating them and sitting them in classrooms. I mean, if that grows, the school's just not going to be able to handle it anymore. And that's because of the momentum brought on by your case. And I want to stress something too, because we've been talking about this case over with our show and talking to other leaders around Long Island about why Judge Rademacher ruled the way he did. And I want to stress again, and I did this yesterday, we'll do it again now. Judge Rademacher said he wasn't making this ruling, and this is in his ruling. He wasn't making it on, judging the effectiveness of the mask or the effectiveness of the mask in regards to stopping the spread of COVID. He was making this ruling strictly on the constitutionality or lack thereof of the process. So I want to go over that now with everybody so that we understand. The judge did not rule the mask unconstitutional. The judge ruled the way in which the masks were enforced to be worn and the process by which that enforcement was enacted was unconstitutional. Am I understanding that right? I want the lawyer to tell me one way or the other. He can say you're awful, you're wrong. That's the way it's supposed to be. Does that sound
Oh yeah,
right
sure.
to you?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. That's exactly right.
I'm so happy. So why don't we go over that a little bit, though?
Yeah.
Explain to the people the process.
So our elected representatives make the law. That's how we get to participate in our government. That's the difference between a democracy and a dictatorship, essentially. Now, what Governor Hochul did is she comes in August and she realized she doesn't have the executive power to mandate anything. She is helpless, but she wants to mask every kid in the state, right? So she backdoors it through the Department of Health. And where the Constitution comes in, we have a separation of powers argument. So there are some things that administrative agencies can do. They can make their own rules with the force and effect of law, like washing hands. The judge on Tuesday in the second department brought that up, and that really parses out these issues because, sure, we've all seen the signs in the bathroom, employees must wash hands.
Yes.
It doesn't say all patrons have to wash hands because there's a balance. And so the legislature, when they stripped the executive of these directives, they said, we are restoring this state to the pre-pandemic situation. We have vaccines now. We have a handle on it. Then Hochul comes flying in and pretty much confuses everyone, thinking that she's issuing an executive order, and just circumvents the legislature entirely. And what they did was they amended what's the sanitary code. Again, that was something I had never heard of 5 months ago.
We're all learning about new things in this state now. So
yeah, right. It's incredible what goes on behind the scenes with these administrative agencies who are only tasked with implementing the laws that were created. There is absolutely no law giving the Department of Health the power to regulate 19 million people. Nowhere, nowhere even close. They talk about diseases and stuff, but the Department of Health, for the first time, is claiming we've had this power all along. This is right up our alley. It's a disease. We can do no. So they essentially stole the power away from the legislature. And to make matters worse, when they amended the sanitary code, they didn't actually put the rules in there. They made a broad delegation of authority to the commissioner to make her own determinations, which is what we're calling the mask mandates. Now, these determinations, they are fictional. They don't exist in law. They're not codified in any statute. They're not executive orders. They're not passed by the legislature. They made that up. And the problem with that is that with the rulemaking process, it times out, it lapses out. And these determinations don't. So I could talk about SAPA now or later, but in our democracy, we have a say in what goes on. And with the administrative aspect of things, they set it up so if someone promulgates an emergency rule, they get 90 days. But after that, it has to be open to public comment. So we, the people, can comment. It could be evaluated. Hochul didn't do it. She just continued an emergency regulation for another 90 days until February, when it's already lapsed. It should have lapsed already on Monday.
Mm-hmm.
And then
on January 24th, because you said it was supposed to be a 60-day regulation, right? And instead
Right.
now, and that's the other thing. We were just outside of the DOT yesterday, and they're like, well, she just extended the mask mandate to February 10th. You know, where are we getting these numbers from? Number one. Number two, did she ever get, when Cuomo was in hot water, when he was getting a little inappropriate and he was getting, on his way out, and the state legislature said, well, you know what, we're not giving you any more power to make decisions. And they took those decisions back. Okay. And by the way, and without being political, but a heavy majority, Democrat leaning Senate and Assembly, right? They took the power away from the executive branch, the governor's office. There are a lot of people who think that they gave that power back to Kathy Hochul. Did that ever happen?
No, not even close. And you're right. The bill was sponsored by mostly Democrats and major Democrats too. No, they did not even close give it back to Governor Hochul. And it's just the opposite. So like I said before this pandemic, before March 2020, the governor could only do a limited amount of things. But now he can do even less things, or she. The seat of the governor can do less things. At first it was just to stay or suspend laws, because sometimes you got to cut through red tape to get things done, like with hurricanes and other things. But now her stay in suspend powers, or any future governor, is even more limited. And the legislature added in that they can end a state of emergency at any time to prevent all these abuses that had happened under Cuomo. So her hands are tied. Not only does she have no directive or lawmaking power at all, but she has less power to even suspend or modify laws. Because the legislature, like you said, bipartisan, mostly Democrats, they said, no, you're not going to be able to interfere with the law endlessly. It has to, we are the check on that. We're the people's elected representatives, and this is not your power to have anymore. And she just disregarded it.
Yeah, and now so it sounds like what's happening is she's kind of, like you said, granted. Now the health department, let's just clear this up so we can kind of put things on the same level. There's the judicial branch, which is your courts. You have the legislative branch, which is your state legislature, assembly, senate, and then you have the executive branch. And the health department, much like at the federal level, the Justice Department is an extension of the executive branch, right? The health department at the state level is an extension of, or is under, subordinate to the executive branch, correct?
Absolutely.
Cool. So then Kathy Hochul is your governor. She's your chief executive, the top of the executive branch, and she's using other elements of the executive branch to circumvent the legislative branch, which at that point is erasing checks and balances. Okay. That is no longer was being eroded. It's being destroyed. We may be having some stream issues. If I break up a little bit, I apologize. But it looks like we're okay. But the democracy looks like it's being eroded. And I want to get back to process, because Judge Rademacher did not rule on the effectiveness of the mask. He ruled on the constitutionality of the process, right? And I want you to,
sorry. Yeah.
So the process by which they passed these laws. Well, I don't want to say laws with air quotes.
Right.
The process by which they passed these regulations, and I call it legislation by regulation, because that's what's going on. These departments and committees are being given unlimited power by the government. The executive branch is usurping the legislative branch, and now it looks like they're trying to manipulate the judicial branch. That's me talking, not you, so don't hold it against Mr. LaValia. But let's get back to the process, because let's go ahead and say that you win when we win, right? What does that mean going forward? What type of precedent does that set to make sure this never happens again? Because that, to me, is the most important thing.
Yes, yeah. So again, it is procedural. The legislature makes the laws. If Hochul wanted to propose something to them, then that's where she had to go, not backdooring it in. First off, the commissioner is Hochul is the commissioner's boss, so
Right.
she tells her what to do. The commissioner, under no circumstances, can make laws. She gave herself the own power to make laws, so that's procedural. It's unconstitutional, and that is exactly what we attacked. This is not about science. It is not about masks, whether they're effective, they're not, vaccines. All that's debatable. But the process in which laws are made, that is not debatable. And you cannot just violate it whenever you want. And going forward, if it isn't stopped, then we have an executive branch that swallows up the legislative branch. And what happens then? We're gone. We're out of the system. And we go back to the 1700s when our forefathers were, and everyone were fighting for that independence. And the result of that fight was the Constitution. And in that is the ability for us to be heard in government. We've all heard taxation without representation. Well, now we're just getting fiats without representation, because
regulation without representation.
Right. And it's become
it's
exactly what it is. And it's become a government by bureaucracy, not government by the people. And if we don't stand up and continue to challenge this, we will be erased from the entire process and end up with a dictator or a monarch. And we won't allow it. None of us will.
We can't allow it. We can't. And
No.
I know there were other regulations that were supposed to be getting passed or reviewed through SAPA. Let's go through that real quick. There's been a lot of chatter about this. It was found on the New York Register page. Lots of trainings going on about it. What is SAPA and what is going on there? Because you could look at New York Register, you can look on these pages and see that they're talking about isolation and quarantine and vaccinations. And it looks like a lot of these bills, A8378, A416, which was removed, A8398 dealing with religious exemptions, the mask mandates potentially, again, usurping the state legislature. I mean, again, do you think if these laws, and if it was so effective and it saved lives and the science was clear, why avoid voting on it? I mean, it doesn't make sense. But what is SAPA, and how is that being manipulated to kind of, keep the people out of the process?
So SAPA stands for the State Administrative Procedure Act. And this was the legislature's way of allowing us to partake in the rulemaking process. So since the legislature is the sole exclusive body that makes laws, when they sometimes have to delegate that to administrative agencies, they want there to be a check and balance on it. And so there are rules in place that any administrative body has to follow when they want to make a rule. Now, here in August, Hochul made this emergency regulation to amend, what we're calling 2.60 of the sanitary code. She did that as an emergency, and they had no justification in it in the first place. They just said, well, Delta's tenfold, and I'm not commenting on whether it was, whether it wasn't. It doesn't matter to me.
We're talking about the process.
The process. In this process, they had to establish sufficient grounds to even be granted this emergency regulation, because the legislature made it very clear, and it's common sense, that if emergency regulations can just be continued, they can be abused, and
There's no need for a legislature.
Yeah, exactly. So after the 90 days passed, on November 24th, Hochul did it again. They passed it as another emergency regulation, but they thought they were clever. They're not, because what they tried to do on a workaround to say that they were repealing and replacing the prior one, but it's exactly the same text. Literally, it's exactly the same. So she extended it out to another 90 days. can't do that. Under SAPA, you have to open it up to public commenting. So on November 24th, it should have been opened up to public commenting, and then that limits the period for which it could be adopted permanently to 60 days. So you got November, December, January, and that's why the 24th. But they didn't do that until the middle of December. And so they bought more time somehow. I don't know how, but they bought more time. So it went from December to February. And here we are now, really being ordered by something that should have expired. It's unconstitutional and it's invalid in the first place. And it can't stand.
That's we're hoping that we get a favorable ruling. And it sounds like, again, on the law only, it's a winner. It doesn't sound like it's anything different, because now here's the thing. We talked before the show about an hour ago. We're not supposed to talk about what we talked about beforehand, but I mentioned something here. Laws are laws. They're passed by the legislature. They're signed into law. You have to follow them, whatever it is. Laws are laws. Okay. Here's the problem. We have laws. Then we had what Cuomo did with executive orders, where they lost that power. Now we had mandates. Okay. But the mandates, now they've become what these things that we call determinations. I remember looking for the latest mask mandate in November when they first did this. I guess they put these regulations in, and there was no order, or it was August, there was no executive order to look up. It was a determination. What is that? I've never heard of that before. I follow laws, okay, because they were passed the right way. We're following determinations now. What's next? Are we going to follow suggestions? What is the deal? I mean, how much more of this can we take? So thank goodness you're fighting this, because that's insane. The determination is just this big word. It's like the Wizard of Oz, right? This big word. There's this big, powerful green guy, but really it's just Kathy Hochul behind the curtain. Like, who cares? We can throw some water on her or something. I don't know.
No, what 100%. And I told you before that's the analogy I've been using for the last few months, because that's really what it is. She's behind this curtain. And when she came in August, unfortunately, our institutions listened and they didn't defy her. And she's like, all right, this is working. Let me get the snowball going. And to my horror, as I now have to look at the state register, because that's where these rules are published after, I'm seeing them accelerate significantly their rulemaking agenda. And they're doing it on the same flawed, unconstitutional basis of what I discussed with the commissioner making her own powers. They're using that same language to institute quarantining in schools, testing, and it all goes down to forced vaccination. And I'm not commenting on vaccinations.
Sure.
I'm commenting on being unlawfully forced to do something just because some lady or guy said so. That's not how we work here. We're Americans. We have a democratic process, and Hochul cannot just get on TV, say whatever the hell she wants, and rule by that. And the state education department is another executive agency, and well, it's not that clean cut, but in any event, they're still following Hochul, and they write out now suggestions that schools get, and they're following. We're being ruled by fictional What is that?
Suggestions, determinations,
right? Recommendations.
The CDC recommends. It's like, but where is this legal? And why are we giving? And then again, like, a mandate is only law when the people give it legal standing. It just, it bothers me to no end.
It's infuriating.
Let's go ahead and say worst case scenario, Chad. I'm not trying to say bad things, but let's go ahead and say we get a bad ruling. Is there a way you can bring this up to a higher court, or is this done if you lose here at the appellate level?
We could bring it up to the Court of Appeals.
Okay.
I would just like to give a shout out to Amir Benno, who is a very, very skilled lawyer in appellate practice, and he's going forward with us now on that process. And yeah, we're going to bring it to the Court of Appeals if that happens. And cool. I think that's where it will eventually end up anyway, and it should properly end up that way, because there's 4 judicial departments, so the Court of Appeals has jurisdiction over all of them, and that's the entire state. And it's it should be ruled on by them. And we're not going to give up. We are never ever going to back down, because they will never get away with taking our liberties away and having us wake up one day and say, hey, you got to be quarantined. Why? And only to find out that some rule got backdoored in because Hochul said so, or Dr. Bassett said so. Why are we listening to Dr. Bassett? Right? Think about that. This is an administrative appointee who, at any point in time, right now, she could be on her computer typing away the next determination with a different date.
Looks like we may have lost Chad there. I apologize if I did lose him, but for everybody in the chat, if you could hear me, are we back online here? Here we go. I'm going to try and bring him back.
I'm back.
Let's see if I can bring him on.
Am I on?
It looks like I'm having connectivity issues there on that. Oh, it looks like he's back now. I think we got him back. Chad, do you hear me?
I do, Sean.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know what happened, but you're back.
No worries.
Now you're on the left side of the screen. Before you were on the right side of the screen. Now you're on the left side of the screen. So
nice,
I guess
switch up.
Change the sides there. But anyway, on any respect, we're really happy to see that you're not giving up. One final question is, if you win and everything is shot down and this is unconstitutional, maybe a shot in the dark though, is there any way the governor can be impeached and held accountable for this, or is that really not in the equation?
Oh, that's in the equation. And I my personal opinion is that she can be sued individually, because look, she came into office hell-bent on doing things that are unconstitutional. She took an oath of office. She's betrayed all of us, and there has to be consequences for that, and she should be impeached for it. She directly violated the Constitution, and she's not giving up. She's just, they're expanding their power so much, and it's so deliberate. And here's the other thing I want people to know. It's fear-mongering. This isn't the first time we've seen fear-mongering being used to take advantage of people before. She keeps saying it's in the name of public health. We're doing this all in the name of public health. It's not. It's not. And even the AG's office, they couldn't formulate a legal response. What they're doing is they're trying to bait the court to fall on the science and all that other stuff, which we never brought up as an issue. And that's what it is. And I saw her go on TV, say it's a blip. She's calling our freedom a blip.
A blip.
A one day where we had, look, we're asking for choice. We're not asking for other people to be, leave us alone. Let us have our choice. That's all we're asking for. And look at the resistance we're getting.
It's incredible. It's because they don't want to live. They don't want to give up the control. And it blows my mind, but there it is. You said it right there. The people want choice. The people want freedom. She calls your freedom a blip. She calls your liberty a blip. She stomps all over you. I mean, one more thing you had mentioned before, and I wrote it down because I love it. This whole thing about the terminations, and then the counsel for the state, when Judge Miller asked counsel about if you could mandate washing hands, would you? And they said yes. Tell me what you meant about. Give me that example you were giving me about colors that may be bad for your eyes, because this is the best way to explain this.
So this is the slippery slope, right? If she wins or is allowed to do this, then she can say one day, you know what? I think the color green is bad for people's eyes. And we have some study from Thailand and China. And, because of that, I'm banning the color green. It is in the best interest of public health to ban the color green. And now we all wouldn't be able to wear the color green. And it could go even further to that. What if she says, hey, we have to wear a bubble. We're going to all be bubble boys because it's in the best interest of the public health. Anything can be used to harm others by saying it's in the public health. Oh, this protects the world. It's in the public's interest. So yeah, anything can be banned, whether from your green shirt or to my blue one. She could pick randomly a color and go from there. And that's the problem. And that's what they're doing.
And they're just eroding the process, cutting the people out, cutting the representation out, and just trampling all over us. But no more, because of people like you. Chad, one more, anything left for the people here? We're going to get ready to sign off. We really appreciate you coming on. Anything left? Where can they find you? How can they help? Just give everybody what you need, and let them know what they need from you and what we can continue to do going forward as we advance in this fight.
So yeah, you could I created a special website just for the mask or the lawsuit issue. It's cjlawny.com, and you could I have to update it. You can check it out there. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter, and cjllaw.org is my regular website. But yeah, I just want to reach out to all these folks who have popped up and shown their support. It's overwhelming, and I can't thank them enough for hanging in there and fighting as well, because I've never experienced anything like this in my life. All the people that will do anything for their children and for their rights, and when we all come together, we're unbeatable. And we have to remember that they serve at our consent. They are only there because we elected them to be there. And in the similar vein, we have the power to get them out. We are not helpless. Like Sean said, I'm just a dad. I'm a good trial lawyer, but I'm just a dad. And I took the steps to fight this tyranny, and we all can do it. And we just got to keep moving forward. And they're going to lose. And this will be a moment in history we'll never forget.
This is it. Moment in history we will never forget. Thank you so much for all the work that you're doing. Again, you can donate to the cause at Mandate for Freedom PAC. Look them up. Mandate for Freedom PAC. You can also go to Chad LaValia's website at cjlawny.com. Special one for this case. Chad LaValia, thank you so much for coming on, spending an hour of your time with the people. And anything you need, you got my information. I've got yours. If you need us, you need support, you need a little help with donations and whatnot, let me know. We'll put the word out. We'll try and get the word for you. You're doing a great thing, and we all appreciate it. Thank you so much, Chad.
Thank you so much, Sean.
Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Chad LaValia, the lawyer representing us, our constitutional rights, our liberties in court against the state of New York and tyranny. Folks, Mandate for Freedom PAC. Please donate if you can. Your help goes a long way for them to further the fight so that we can truly restore the power of the people to we the people. I'm losing my voice. I want to listen to this interview because I was asking the questions, and quite frankly, he gave us so much great information. I have to listen to it again. So I'm going to turn this off. I'm going to sign off. Thank you so much for watching. I've never seen so many people watching at once. You guys did a great job. Thank you so much to Chad LaValia, again, CJ Law, to everybody who got involved. Donate to Mandate for Freedom PAC. Please, please, please stay safe tonight. It's going to be a cold one. Drive safe if you're out. And we will be back in touch with more. I got a lot of information, a lot of other stories we're working on for school districts around Long Island. You're not going to want to miss it. I love all of your unending support. You guys are the best. Thank you. God bless you. And God bless America. Stop complying, folks, and stay loud.